Mr. Nagesh Ramamurthy is a construction project management professional with 27 years of industry leadership experience. He has managed large projects for large national and multinational clients successfully as a team and account lead. Recently, he has been responsible for leadership, management, portfolio development, and project operations for world's leading corporation. In senior management positions he held in organization, he has been responsible for process development, talent enhancement, driving operational excellence, and improving customer satisfaction. He now assists organizations to transform possibilities, is focusing on enhancing people capabilities through assessments and interventions to improvise and optimize. So, Mr. Nagesh, on the stage.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I thank PMI for accepting this topic, which is very close to my heart because I think I have to spend about 20 years doing only meetings as project manager. And unlike the previous presentation, this presentation is very data heavy. So I wanted you to prepare for the data that is going to come out of this particular presentation. And how am I going to take you through and how are we going to have this discussion is, I'll talk about a little bit of introduction as any presentation starts with. I'll give you two scenarios based on which the whole presentation is developed. A typical way of doing a meeting and another atypical way of doing it. And I'll take you through a bit of statistics out here. And we will talk about the PMI's framework for competency development also here. We'll have just a sneak peek there. I am not going into details of the competency development framework. And then probably at the end we will realize if meetings do really matter or it's just not required. Then I'll be open to some question and answer. Okay, now the introduction is why I said this is very close to my heart. Is this is a small part of my larger research which I am doing, my doctoral research. The doctoral research is to develop a framework for organizations, that is to assess the organization on the maturity of their PM competency. You all know there are different types of organizations that are in construction industry. We have pure project management consultancies, we have pure design companies. Now you see the amalgamation of these two also in design and build. You have GC contracting, you have many other formats of construction formats which are there in the market. So everybody, including a design organization, needs a project management framework. You have project managers there also in the design firm. So my aim was through this research to find out, can there be a framework to assess an organization as to where they are currently and where they want to be on the project management levels. So the research was on creating a maturity model. So as part of that, I took up this particular topic on researching on the meetings. So that's why I said that it is very close to my heart. Otherwise also I spend a lot of time in meetings. So it's part of the organization research that I am trying to do. So I wanted to have an umbrella model which any type of format of an organization can fit into that particular model and assess themselves to see where they are currently today and where they want to be tomorrow. It also involves mapping the capabilities of people, because project management or the projects are made out of people, and more the maturity of project management in people is the teams are more mature to handle the projects and the projects are successful, thereby driving the organizational success also. So I am looking at the teams and the people skills, their capability, finding the gaps and trying to see where they can scale up to. So part of that was my research. Now coming back to the topic of meetings, many of us, I can see a lot of senior managers here. Why do we attend meetings? We attend meetings because sometimes we feel we are important, so we have to attend meetings, or sometimes we gain importance because we attend meetings. Both are possible. We attend meetings because we are informed, we know the data, we have the knowledge, we are the SMEs. There is somebody who are responsible for conducting a meeting. There is a chair, there is a scribe. So there are many reasons why people attend meetings, right? So there is a wonderful research which has been done by Kaiser. He has been doing this globally for a lot of people on the meeting. Just on the meeting, he has published a research paper. Based on his research, he has come across something which is very interesting and contrary to what I just said. He says meeting is interactions between the people who are unwilling, and people who are generally who attend the meeting are not informed. And many people who attend the meetings are not suitable to attend the meetings. And meetings are also not necessary. And he says whatever is written for the meeting and out of the meeting, about the meeting, are not important. You all must understand, or you must be understanding, how much of this is actually true. Those who have really driven the meetings, either all of them are true or part of them are true. So there I was fortunate to have attended and worked for an organization which had taken this statement very, very seriously. They said, if so much of research has been done and this is the outcome of that research, we have to do something about the meeting. And it so happened that they had built processes, they had built protocols, they had built playbooks around just about the meetings. I'm saying this because from the PMI framework you would understand, or otherwise also, that 90% of the projects in project managers in the project keep communicating, right? And you also know 80% of the projects fail because of communication. So meeting is one of the modes where a lot of people communicate. So where is the gap? Why is it not that we should not take this particular statement very seriously? So this organization built a lot of processes around it. So there was a protocol also that was built, which I am going to share it with you, very interesting one. And the scenario which I said that I will talk to you about, two of them. One is when I got into this particular account, I had a mandate. My organization was doing the project management for this client. My organization was also doing the facility management for this client. So once the project is completed, I had to hand over the projects to the facilities. It's a known fact. But the client was asking, look here, I have given you both the verticals to your organization. There are 200 and odd people on my account combined. Now they keep communicating, they keep talking to each other. I would like to know, where is the value? In this particular organization which I am talking about, there were people who were busy from morning till the evening only in meetings. There are a few colleagues in this audience who know that how it happens in that particular account. They have been working with me, they have worked with me, they have helped me in developing projects and deliver projects. So they would relate to what I am saying. Morning till evening people are busy attending meetings. So, and the mandate was, Nagesh, you will have to come back to me. I'll give you 6 months time on this account to tell me how these two verticals together are giving me value. And he said, that was quite easy statement, but he said that you will have to come back to me with metrics. I said, two people meeting each other and discussing something on optimization and efficiency, how do I build it around metrics? I was actually exasperated with that statement because I had never done this in my 25 years of career. Never looked at connection of people, driving an account, converting that into a metrics. That was a golden opportunity for me, and that I chanced upon, why not look at meetings as itself a research topic. Since I was already doing a larger research, why not I look at meeting as a part of that research and see how it gels with it? Can I give those metrics to my client and convince him that we are doing well for you? So that was one mandate where I had to connect the dots. And second mandate, of course, coming back to the typical meeting, all that is listed here, starting from an agenda till the MOM, having a conflict which Mr. Vijay Paul just now talked about, and having disruptions in the meeting, having disruptions in the projects, usefulness of it, decision making, everything that is listed out here is something that happens in a meeting. However, they were all part of the data points that I collected for generating a research on this meeting, including the post-meeting actions. So this is the way generally a meeting runs. You have an agenda, you have a schedule, you have a venue, you have people who gather, there are some decisions made, some conflicts happen, there are some decisions postponed, there's minutes of meeting, there's an action, somebody looks at the action. That's how a typical meeting runs. I want to look at a typical way of doing meetings. That's what I'm here to share things with you. The second scenario, what happened was, in this particular account, there was a large project which just came up. So being a projectized organization, there were about 28 people who were inducted into my team. So during that induction, what happened was, a lot of them came to me, almost about 8 or 9 of them, they came to me and said, sir, you have been in training earlier. You have done a lot of training. I have a situation wherein my company has not given me a raise. My company has not given me merit increments. My company has not given me a promotion. They say your performance is underperformance. And they have pushed me into your particular project, and they say that you will handle well. See, it's a situation where they say you will handle well, it's a large project, and on the other side they have done all this to me. Now can you help me with your experience, see that I come out successfully out of this project and I get where I get to go. That was one. Secondly, there were few trainees who had just come out of the college, were also put into my project. So they had a different set of problems. They said, I have been inducted, but there's no hand holding that is happening to me. You have been, again, same thing, you have been training, you have been mentoring a lot of young fresh graduates for quite some time, so will you be able to help me fly? So this was the scenario that came to me as a second thing. Now, there were some common problems in these two sects of people. There were some problems which were not solvable by me, and there were some problems which were very, very serious. Why I talk about serious is, out of those 28 people, including the freshers who came into my team, there were 2 of them who were on PIP, Performance Improvement Plan. They were on the verge of losing their job if the plan was not successful. So that was a serious problem for them as well as me, because I had to get the work done from them. So I was pondering as to how do these people who have this problem have come to the level that they are currently in. How did they raise in the hierarchy? One. Secondly, how do I help them raise further? These were the 2 things that I was pondering while I was doing research on the meetings. I will go back to the meetings again, come back to the scenario 2 a little later. Now this research on meetings that I am talking about spanned for about 39 months, and there were about 23 projects in which I have collected data points. Now the team sizes varied. On the project management, the team sizes was as high as 38 people, and the client were maximum 17 people on the client side. Now this client side was including the IT, the lab, the business, everybody put together was the client for me here in this study. And there were external service provider where there were 22 people who were part of that particular team. External service provider, here I mean the designers, the architects, the other consultants who are part of the project. Here in one large project which I am talking about, we had about 14 consultants. So those consultants comes under service providers. I have not considered the contractors and their team members under these external providers for some reason which I will talk about it a little later. The projects were located not just in Bangalore, though the PMO was located in Bangalore for this particular client. We had done projects across many geographical locations, including Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad and Gurgaon. So this study is including those locations in those 23 projects over 39 months. Now, the mind-boggling number about the meetings is 3,051 meetings is what we had in those 39 months. Almost about 4.5 meetings per day. And if you look at the number of people who attended these meetings, it comes to about 37 man years. Not talking about man days or man months. Man years is what people have spent time on only meetings. I'm talking about excluding the contracting organizations. So what does this all mean? Please don't directly divide 3,051 over 39 months. You will not get those 4.5 meetings per day, because we in India have a lot of holidays. We have Sundays, we have public holidays, we have festival holidays, we have people on personal time offs and things like that. So it is actually effectively 278 days of working which I have taken for this particular calculation. So it is not a direct division there. Now, going deeper, I would like to, you saw so many data points that I collected. I will try to give you highlights of only those which are very, very important and key for this particular discussion. Now, what was the mode of the meetings? Surprisingly, if you look at it, the virtual meeting were almost about 52%, not face-to-face meetings. Face-to-face meeting were only about 39. And the project site walkthroughs were only about 9%. I have considered them also as meeting, because a lot of decisions and other things are taken in during those walkthroughs. And if you look at the duration of the project, duration of the meeting, it ranged from 30 minutes to 90 minutes and a little over 90 minutes, some of the meetings. But interestingly, when I said earlier that this company had taken that particular statement very seriously, and they had built in a lot of processes and protocols around the meetings itself. So typically, if you see, the maximum meetings were about 30 minutes, which is about 82% of the time, and 60 minutes was 7.88. Now, while I was doing this particular collection of data, I also had a Six Sigma project. I said, can this process of holding the meetings be improvised? That's when we looked at, can those 7.88% of meeting be converted into 30 minutes meeting, and we improvise the process. Why was that required? Because if you look at the count of people that attended the meetings from 2 till over 10, if you look at the distribution, which is a continuous data, we had a probability curve of about 4.12 sigma here. Our intention was convert that 4.12 to 5 in next 1 year. So I had a colleague of mine who also was Six Sigma Green Belt. We said that why don't we take this as a project and see where the loss of efficiency and optimization was, and try to convert. That's when we saw there were a lot of 60-minute meetings which were not very optimized. We said let's convert them into 30 minutes of meeting and then see how do we bring traction to this. So 4.12 sigma moved on to 4.8 when we converted a lot of them. That 7.88, when it was converted to 5.2, we had that sigma going up. So there was the mandate that was given was you have to do more with the less amount of time. That is why you had those 30 minutes meeting, which was very, very in vogue. And secondly, only client meetings with the client and the walkthroughs and the end users was to be on face to face. It was a mandate that most of the time you will have to use the virtual meeting, so that there can be a lot of multitasking that can happen. The time can be utilized for many other things. In fact, while you see that 52% of the time was done in virtual meetings, you would always think that, do really people attend those meetings completely? So we had done a survey for that also, saying that when you are attending a virtual meeting, do you completely devote that 30 minutes of time for the meeting, or you do multitasking also? There are many times when I have put myself on mute and I have attended many other calls and I have come back to the meeting. So to be honest, I did a survey, me and my colleague did a survey to find out, really does this happen? Many people said we do. We do a lot of other things also, which is official of course, that we multitask. So effectively that 30 minutes is not 30 minutes. It's about 20-25 minutes is what we saw. So going forward, if you look at the type of constitutions of people who attended this meeting, let me remind you again, here the contracting team was not included. You would find that the project stakeholder meeting was the largest. I mean here project stakeholder meetings is including the other service providers. It is the designers and the project team within themselves. So client meetings was very, very few as about 2%. Just about 2% of the meeting was held with the clients out of those 3051 meetings that I am talking about. So what does this mean? The teams were so much empowered to do a lot of things by themselves, which I'll again talk about it a little later. And one-on-one meetings was the percentage was very high, almost about 3%, which is much more than the client meetings. The one-on-one meetings is talking about one person to one person. On many other conflict, we just now talked about conflict. We also had a question as to how do I resolve conflicts with my boss. So those all were addressed in that one-on-one meetings. The purpose of the meeting. You would see the purpose of the meetings was as high as about 42% doing not project related work directly. You would see that there was discussion on strategy, there was training, there was building trust among the team members to get consensus on a particular situation, or it could be how do we share work when we are overloaded, and how do we socialize, yes, including emergency handling and problem solving. That is the conflicts. If you see, there are almost about 20% of the time the meetings were held for that. So the review was only about 44%, which is equal to 42% of why meetings were held otherwise. Generally, I have seen over 25 years before I entered into this particular account that meetings were held to review the projects. Here it was not so. Project reviews were not to be discussed many times in the meeting. Why do you have meeting then? We had meetings only when we had to project the project status to the client, one. Secondly, we had a lot of internal meetings only to resolve 4 things. One was decision, when we had issues, when we had problems, and when we have conflicts. So these were the 4 main reasons why we had so many meetings. That's why that 42% where meetings were held, otherwise not for the review. So when you have a doubt, when you have a view, or when you have some idea that comes up into your mind to say or do things differently, we were calling for a meeting. Now, little further, if you agenda, we know that if you go to the web and read a lot of blogs, you would find that doing effective meetings is first to have an agenda. Without agenda, your meeting will not be successful, is what I have read in many blogs and many internet sites. But here is a case where you have almost about 38% of the times when agenda was almost not circulated. That's because we were more doing meetings not for reviews, but for decisions, issues, solving conflicts, and team building. So agendas were not circulated. If you look at those agendas circulated 5 days prior or more than 5 days prior, they were scheduled meetings which were recurring over a period of 1 year. Then I have taken one data point out of those 4, which I call it as DIPSI. The D stands for D here, decisions here, wherein did we take decisions in those meetings? How many times the decisions were moved to the next meeting? And one important thing that was, as a protocol set, was for every decision there has to be an action item and an action owner assigned to it. There was almost about 38,000 decisions that were made in these 3,500 meetings, and there were 47 and odd thousand people, action items derived and people assigned to it. So people, as Mr. Ian Prakash little while ago said, that if there are no conflicts and we don't solve problems, we are no project managers. So the more focus here was more on solving those, getting decisions out, taking decisions, solving those problems, so, resolving those issues and conflicts. The meetings were held for that. Also, it was a norm or a protocol that you should have only one agenda per meeting, because the meetings were short. It was 30 minutes. Anything beyond 30 minutes, it was a no-no. People used to decline the meetings. So it was very, very clear that you should have one agenda only for one meeting. Multiple agendas were not discouraged, and a lot of people were very clear that if there is a decline in the meeting by somebody, it is normal, because overcrowding of the meeting is also something which is not acceptable. There has to be optimization of people also within the meeting. There cannot be 25 people in a meeting room with only 4 or 5 of them contributing to the meeting. So the optimization was also important. So they said those who are necessary for the meeting should be called, and if there are declines, then it is also normal. If you look at this number, 3,051 meetings, what am I talking about in terms of cost? Because everything boils down to the cost, right? So what was this whole research about? What is the cost of the research? I'm not talking about the cost spent for the research. I'm talking about cost about the research. So I was doing research on the meetings. The research about the meetings was almost about 100 lakhs. The time spent or the resources spent on the meetings alone was about 100 lakhs. It's about 154.33 USDK. So that is the size of meeting that we were talking about. Remember, this is with optimized meeting duration of 30 minutes, also not including the vendors or the contractors team into it. It was just PM community meeting together and talking about the project conflicts, problems and issues. That was costed at about 100 lakhs. That's why meeting is so very important. Second thing is the scenario 2. Now PM talks about, PMBOK talks about, PMI talks about a meeting framework, which was in the last footprint session also a colleague of mine from a different industry talked about this particular framework of a triangle of knowledge, personal and performance, which needs to be extended further for being industry specific and organizational specifics also. So in this research of meetings, I was trying to amalgamate the personal competencies into it. How would I see that these people go up the ladder and solve their problems which they came up to me? I had to increase their managing capacity, leading capacity, enhance their communication capacity. All this required what? Just one thing. It all required empowerment. And empowerment was something that I can say was inherited. In the sense, why inherited? I have one past experience of giving almost 50% of my professional years to a particular organization. Their managing director is just here in this room. In those 14 years, I can say, I don't know whether he knows about it, he never asked me, what are you doing? How is your project going on? What are your project's problems? Is there anywhere that I can help you? That is the kind of empowerment that I had in those 14 years. Many of the projects were successful. I'm not saying we never had problems. I'm not saying that I never went up to him saying that I have a problem, I need your assistance. It was all there, but he had left it to me. From almost about 0 years to almost about 14 years. That's why I said empowering people was something which is inherited to me, is what I can say. So I passed on the same thing to my team members. I said, I gave them empowerment. I said, look here, this is what you need to do. I used to tell them what they need to do for a particular situation, whether it is the decision, issues, problems or conflicts. They were empowered to do whatever they wanted, but under my wings, under the guidance of a lot of people. So that's how they came up, and these were what was my focus areas when I was trying to bring them up from wherever they were. Since I have less time now, I'll just move on to the next one, but again the focus one was on the meeting protocols. You will have to adhere to that, and focus of project managers and the team members were more on decision, issues, problems and conflict, and nothing else. So what was the result when people were empowered and allowed to do a lot of things in the meeting? There were very less meetings that the top management and the managers attended. You would see out of those 40 and odd people who were there in the account, 86% of them moved one step from what they entered as. There were about 58% of them who went 2 steps ahead in their knowledge and performance level enhancement. 96% of the team members enhanced their value in the market or in the organization. So what happened was, 2 members of them are today independently handling the projects as project managers. I talked about performance evaluation plan for 2 of them in the initial discussion. One of out of those 2 people, one was that 2 member and one fell in that 96%. The plan was actually a success. So what does this all mean? Meetings and empowering teams to do well in the meetings, what does it all mean? It all means that it is critical to the quality. What we call it as CTQ, critical to quality for the people, for the deliverables, and for the project as large, including the organizations that they work for. So meetings are quite important. I am sure with this you would also understand that meetings are really important and they really matter, because there is cost involved in it, there are people involved in it, there are people enhancements which happen in the meeting, because a lot of people try to look at others as to how they are behaving and try to emulate them and try to grow up. Thank you. I am open to questions.
Thank you, Nagesh sir, for sharing this research data and lot of insight into the meetings details and some of the things you shared on the like one agenda meeting and then everyone participating, not overcrowding. I was just more curious to know this organization you were talking about, that they have taken very serious note of organizing these meetings and all actually. So just was curious to know that all this research is post that, right? That they have implemented those processes, protocols and processes or rules and for governing these meetings and all. So all this data is post implementation of those efforts, right? Or it is before that, or you want to share what it was before and how it changed after implementing this new governance on the meetings actually. And some of the practices if you can share on those setting up those processes, because I'm sure a lot of organizations and project managers, they are organizing the meetings day to day, but still there will be challenges like how to do more efficiently and effectively.
Correct. I'll answer this in 2 parts. One is, the meeting processes and protocols were already there when I entered into the account. Only thing is that over having done the Six Sigma project, we optimized it even more. That's where I said the 90 minutes meeting were moved to 60 minutes, and many of the 60 minutes meeting moved on to 30 minutes. So it was more optimization that happened because of me and my colleagues' work on the Six Sigma project. So this data is after the implementation.
Nagesh, thank you for that insightful presentation out there. Just a quick question, just to understand those figures and the other things that were presented here. What were the type of meetings that you just mentioned as a 30-minute meeting, 60-minute meeting, or more than 60 minutes? Were they daily stand-ups? Were they weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual? What kind of meetings were they?
Okay. If you saw the slide of the purpose of the meeting, I'll just go back to that. The review meetings were something which were recurring. Other than the review meetings, everything were on need basis. They were not something which is recurring. They were not something which was weekly or monthly or daily meetings. They were on need basis that happens, which is about 42% of the time that it was non-agenda based meetings.
We talked a lot about the cost of the meeting. Is there any metrics by which we measure the value of the meeting, which is used across the industry?
There is. If you see the typical way of doing the meeting and what constitutes a meeting, there was something called as the outcome. So I have also the data points which are available as to what was the meeting about. Also, if you look at the decisions which I talked about, this is something which have been converted into value. Mr. Vijay talked about on-time decision making and no procrastinating of the meeting. So what would be the effect of procrastination time converted into value is also available. I have not brought that up for this particular discussion. Yes, value of the meetings were also there, but that has not been captured in the dollar value. It has not been captured. What also has not been captured is the physical resources of the meeting, like the meeting room, the cost of the meeting room, the technology costs, the IT costs, all those things have not been captured here. This is purely what 100 lakhs I talked about is purely people cost, the resource cost.
Nagesh, Prakash here. When we talk about value, I think there are quite a lot of intangibles. I think that needs to be captured because, for example, this is a meeting, wherever we are sitting here.
Yes.
So what is the value of the knowledge? You also talked about people going from one level to another by attending this meeting and address. Is there a way we can capture that and say that there are intangibles? And that is something which is very, very important. So meetings are not necessarily in terms of spending time and taking decisions. There are also people who learn about what they need to do. That's my opinion about these meetings also.
You're very right, sir. That's the major research that I am working on as to how do you assess the organization on the PM maturity. So PM maturity is not about the cost. PM maturity is about how people are in a particular team, in a team of an organization. So knowledge is also captured over there. I just brought up that dollar value here only because generally people understand the dollar value very easily. So yes, that it is work in progress. I understand that it's very difficult to capture intangibles into a value. So that's where the research is happening. I don't know whether how much successful I will be. Yeah.
So what motivated you to take this project and how did the boss sponsor this kind of project to allow you to full-time work on this? Or this was a part like side work for you, or it was a full-time thing for you?
Okay. First of all, there was no sponsor for this particular project. One, it was not my full-time job also. I had another day job of managing an account as a PMO head, which was my bread and butter. This was a side work which I did it, and I also had to bring in value to the customer because they were talking about if you're using our data, then how is it that I am getting value out of it? That's why we spring up that Six Sigma project, wherein we tried to see that whether this process is really working or it needs an improvement. So that Six Sigma project was subset of this particular research. Now what motivated me to do this is that scenario what I talked about as to people came to me with problems saying that how do you help me with enhancing my own skills and my own status in the organizational hierarchy. So as a manager of X number of years of experience, it was not written down, but it was definitely my job description that I had to handhold a lot of people in my team to see that they go up the hierarchy. That was my motivation.
Hi Nagesh, Sukant here. I'm a program manager. Can you go back to the previous slide where you have mentioned, you have actually called out decision making as a separate topic or a separate set of meetings there. Now, if you go back to slide number 10 actually. Yeah. So usually when you're talking about solving problems or handling emergencies, most of the time it comes out with an action item, or we have basically have taken some decision there. So when you're calling it out separately, what is it that you're trying to tell us know? Is there something different from what?
I understood your question. See, if you look at the next slide, I'll take you there. About 38,000 decisions made. They were not made only on this 14% of the meetings. This is agenda given for decision making. I'm not saying that when you are having training, which was about 2%, they didn't have action items. They had. It is not that we didn't make decisions while doing the training. We did. But specifically when the agenda called for that we have to make this decision, so this meeting, that is captured as 14%.
Want to ask the perspective of this in today's agile project and program management. And as a part of agile project and program management, meeting is, or the daily huddle, what we call, it is a part of daily meeting, and it is minimum 30 to 45 minutes. Now, as we are doing an analysis on the cost part of that, so to an agile project objective, which is definitely to reduce the cost, whereas the deliver value as quick as we can, do you think that every daily huddle, daily wise, should we continue that, or should it be alternate days from perspective of cost?
Okay, I will not be able to give you a straight answer. Yes, as a part of agile you have daily huddles, which you yourself said is about 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Now, how do you optimize that is something that you will have to see. Are you really making that efficient? Are you really making what you are supposed to do in those 30 to 45 minutes? Or can it be optimized to say 15 to 20 or 25 minutes? That is a project which you will have to work on. I don't know what are the outcomes in your huddle meetings and things like that. This is purely on the work which has happened on the construction scenario, not on the program management scenario. Though I was heading a PMO, yes, I think I missed telling, the PMO meetings were not part of this particular research. The program management research was not part of this statistics. It's purely project management, managing projects, not the program or the portfolio. So in your agile scenario, you will have to see whether you can run a project the way I did it and see whether at what sigma level you are and how do you optimize further to go more efficient.
Thank you.
So my question is again not related to meeting, but your process of doing this research. So like you said, you are working in construction industry, right? So did you teach yourself the research methodologies? How did you self-teach, or you were already doing some research and you knew how to collect data and do the surveys and all that?
Yeah, I trained myself. This research of mine, which I talked about only on meetings, is about 39 months old, or the data collected is for 39 months. But my larger research started in 2012, which the doctoral research which I talked about. I already have a guide who is teaching me as to how to do research, and on data collection, data analysis and others I have trained myself. I'm still training. There are a lot of things that I don't know. So yes, it was a self-study.
At the beginning of the slides, you have mentioned about the output given by the Kaiser, right? That regarding the meeting, whatever outcome seems to be not much useful as such. So, but as per your research, you are saying that it can be made useful for each meetings with 30 minutes or 60 minutes. So does Kaiser had any kind of research that he had done that to give that kind of statement?
Yes, yes. If you look at cases, published papers, and the research, he talks about a similar kind of work, not the way I have done it on a particular account, but he has done it across a lot of organizations spread across the globe. So that research talks about a different thing altogether. He doesn't talk about a project scenario. He talks at the organizational level. He talks about at the CXO levels. There are a lot of meetings that he has seen in his research that are not so very fruitful, which goes on for half a day and ends up with a lunch session. So his research is more at the organizational level, not at the project level or the leaf level. It's more at the trunk level. That I have not done, sir. Outside the project I have not done.
I mean to say is when you said that the review was just about 44%, that's what you said, which was related directly to the project. I would say this is a direct relation.
Correct.
But the other aspects like socializing, it's part of stakeholder management. If you look at education, it's part of HR management.
Understood.
Right. So when you look at it in that context, all this becomes part of project management. So
It is.
so do we, would it be right to keep this outside that when we do the analysis?
No. I'll tell you why it should be part of it. Here the term socialize doesn't mean socializing in a actual socialization setup. Here the socialize means that when you drop a particular plan or a decision, you have to get buy-ins from a lot of stakeholders. I meant that as socializing. I have socialized my plan or decision with so many stakeholders. That is the socializing what I am talking about. And since if you see I had two scenarios. The second scenario was more HR related. So I had to connect these two together to see whether it is really matching. And I used meeting as a tool to empower teams and bring them up. Meeting is not many people use meeting as tools. Meeting as a tool for gathering is definitely used, but how many people use it for upskilling people, empowering them, allowing them to make decisions and solve conflicts is what I was talking about. So it is definitely related to HR. And review also, why the review percentage is just 44 and not otherwise, because it was a mandate that the reviews had to be reduced, the reports had to be sent. If you don't know how to read a report, then you are not fit to get that report. So if you have any clarification, set up a small meeting or have a one-on-one and get that clarified. You don't have to waste 15 people or 20 people's time on the meeting table to just understand the report or just understand the status. Did I clarify?
Hello sir, this is Manjunath. I am also from construction industry. So we all know that risk is the main item which has to be addressed in meeting. So in which category does it fall into?
Okay, issue is I think the basic level of risk. If issues are not solved within time, it becomes risk, otherwise it becomes crisis. I come from that mindset. So if you have a risk plan, if you see the issue happening there, nipping it in the bud is what this talks about. So risk management is also part of this particular thing. And when you make decisions, when you solve problems, it also brings its own residual risks, right? So that was all. Meetings have been held also for those residual risks or residual issues. You think that you have solved an issue completely, but sometimes again it crops up. You never know. So risk has been somewhere a part of this particular thing. Risk management is part of it.
Thanks for all those questions, and thank you, Mr. Nagesh, for presenting the data and figures. I'm definitely, they triggered the curiosity of the crowd and group, and we will look at the meeting effectiveness going forward. Can I request Mr. Sesha Sai, Chair, Engineering and Construction Forum, and VP Outreach, to honor our speaker.
I know many meetings or at least attendees of meetings who come to the meetings to do everything else other than what is meeting called for. Okay, and also sometimes you don't know somebody existed in the meeting. So I know that meetings are hated for all those wrong reasons, but as Mr. Nagesh has told, meetings are also very, can be used as an effective tool. Thank you for this presentation, Mr. Nagesh.